y'all, there are a few things we need to talk about. Number one, the elephant in the room. Yes, this is still here. Nothing's been done with it, but we have also been gone for a whole week. So, I just came back from my cruise yesterday, and whew, it was possibly the worst cruise I have ever been on. And I've been on a lot. And never have I come back from a cruise that I could not wait to come home from. I love cruising. In fact, I did a whole video hyping up cruising before I even went. So the fact that I could not wait to come home halfway through the cruise tells you something. It was a nightmare. But before we get into all that, which I'm going to tell you the whole story, I decided I'm going to take my page in a different direction. I realized both this trip and the trip to St. Augustine that I'm not a very good collector of footage. I'm very live in the moment, not document it type person, which I didn't realize that until I went on my second trip, wanting to document it and forgetting to document. So like the footage I got not only wasn't enough to accommodate an entire video, but it's also inconsistent. If you watched my St. Augustine video, I'm sure you noticed that the timeline was inconsistent and it just was kind of all over the place. And I noticed it on this trip too, that I would realize it had been several hours and I hadn't documented any footage. So I don't think I'm very good at getting footage or documenting things as I'm doing them. I was noticing my husband getting a little annoyed with me having to turn the camera on and then say, okay, we're doing this, or okay, now we're doing this, and explaining everything we're doing. And honestly, if someone was doing that I was traveling with, I would be very annoyed too. So instead of doing that and showing you all firsthand, I think I'm just going to go ahead and start changing things and talking about my experiences and telling the stories instead. I also plan on doing like shopping hauls. I love shopping. I've noticed on social media a lot of people like seeing what other people buy and what they do with it. Maybe I'll do a meal prep video. I've also found some like shortcuts and tips and little tricks and things I've picked up with, doing my hair or makeup or whatever that. So maybe I'll share that. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to go. YouTube is growing very slowly. I've only got 11 followers. I'm hoping to get more. I do plan on hopefully bringing my TikTok followers over because I have over 1,100 TikTok followers. So I'm hoping they'll come over. Most of them don't even know I have a YouTube channel yet. So I'm going to work on that next. So with all that said and done, now I'm going to tell you the story about what happened to make this cruise the worst cruise I have ever been on, and to really make me consider going with another cruise line. Because before this happened, I was just considering looking at other cruise lines. But now it's really tipping the scale in that favor, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start at the beginning. So I mentioned in my last video that I'm a very do-it-myself type person. I mentioned that I will pay extra to... My dog just came in the doggy door. That's what that noise was. I will pay extra to choose my own room because being a light sleeper and, paranoid about things, there's 3 things I make sure to look for when I choose my room. It has to be in the middle of the ship and on a lower deck so I don't feel the sway as much. And it will not be an adjoining room. I don't like adjoining rooms. They make me feel very unsafe, which people say is ridiculous because you can lock the door from the other side, but I still don't like it. Unless there's family or close friends, people that we're traveling with in the other room, that's fine. But if it's strangers, I don't want an adjoining room. So those are my 3 big things I look for. A 4th is that I'll look on the deck above us and below us to make sure there's no venues or anything that's going to be loud, because I'm a very light sleeper. As my brother says, I wake up to a mouse fart. So I went against my better judgment and booked the cruise through a Carnival travel planner. I'm not sure if that's what they're called, but Anyways, she did well for us last time when we went on the Mardi Gras last year. So I trusted her to do it again this year. And then when the cruise was booked and everything, I probably should have checked where my room was way beforehand. Actually, I know I should have done that way beforehand. But I trusted her and I didn't bother. So it wasn't until closer to the cruise that I realized she didn't put us in the middle of the ship. It was middle-ish, but it was more towards the aft, which is the back of the ship. So I already wasn't happy about that, but at this point, it was too late to do anything about it. I was like, okay, I'll just make the best of it and just hope for the best. So we went ahead. We were all excited that morning, we got up, got ready, dropped my son off at mom's, and headed for the port. Everything was going smoothly. Everything was working out well, which should have been a red flag that things were going to go wrong. Every time something, stuff is going good and there's no problems, that typically means that there's going to be an issue later. So I should have listened to my instinct. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do anything about it anyway. Again, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we get to the port and, excuse you, I'm making a video. Do you not see the camera? Move your butt. People don't want to see your butt. My son's cat. Anyway, so we get to the port. I can still see your tail. Gotta love animals. So we get to the port, and this one was confusing because the last time we were in Terminal 3, I think it was, and that was very smooth sailing. So everything that I told you about the where to go and the terminal and stuff like that in the last video, ignore that. That's only if you're going in Terminal 3 of Port Canaveral, because Terminal 6, which is what we went in this time, was very, very different. It was very confusing. They're under construction, so we had to go all the way around this whole thing, and then no one knew where to go. So we finally figured out where to go. We found the porters and dropped off our luggage, get in the car to go park. So all of that was kind of confusing. But then when we parked, we found a parking spot right there, right in the front on the bottom level. So all we had to do was lock the car and walk across the street to enter the terminal. So I was like, wow, that never happens. Usually you have to go up a level or two. So I was like, okay, that's good. So we locked the car, I grabbed my carry-on bag, and we walked across the street. Well, we didn't see our check-in line because, they have it separated into lines, the 12:30 to 1s, the 12 to 12:30, so on and so forth. And we were 11 to 11:30, I believe, and I didn't see our line. So we asked someone, and they said, "Oh, they're across the other street." So we had to cross one street and then cross another street and then the terminal. So we get over there and we show the guy our ticket, our boarding passes, and tell him we're in check-in 11 to 11:30, and he's like, "Okay, I'm going to ignore that. Go on in." Wow, it's only an hour and a half before we're supposed to check in and we're already going into the terminal. So I was like, heck yeah, this is awesome. We get inside, we show our boarding passes again, we go through check-in, see our documents, take our picture, all that good stuff. We go through security just like at the airport. We go to the sniffing dog, like I mentioned before. Really? We go to the sniffing dog, which I mentioned before, and he sniffs our bags and everything. And we go to sit down. I was like, I have never been through check-in and security and all that stuff that quickly and that early. So we're kind of sitting around the port or the terminal waiting for them to start boarding. And they call our group. So we go ahead and we board the ship. Everything was going great. We went and got something to eat. We got our ice cream. And then at about between 1 and 1:30-ish, the announcement came that everyone's rooms are ready. So we go and find our room, and our luggage wasn't there yet, but no big deal. It usually takes time for them to sort through all that luggage and get it delivered to the room. That's why I bring what I need for the day in my carry-on. No big deal. We get in the room and close the door, and that's when the shit hit the fan. That was when The moment everything started with the domino effect of crashing down our amazing vacation. Because as soon as we closed the door, there was this low but loud, if that makes sense, rumbling noise in there. And not only could you hear it, but you could feel it. You felt it in the floor, you felt it through the bed. And it was also like it was pulsating. So it was some kind of pressure thing that you could feel in your head and your ears. And my husband was like, oh no, this isn't going to work. I'm not going to be able to sleep here. So we immediately went down to guest services and told them there was a problem with the room and that we needed a new room. We didn't even get to the counter. Someone from guest services, who I guess job was to thin out the line because the line was long, asked us what we needed, and we told her, and she's like, oh, there's no rooms available. You have to wait until we sail away and see if there's any cancellations. Understandable, sort of, because to me, I'm thinking on a cruise ship, especially because it's a floating hotel, shouldn't you have rooms available in case of emergencies? I mean, we're told there's no rooms available. Okay, so what if there's a family who a pipe bursts in their room or whatever? They can't stay in their room. Where are you going to put them? So you're telling me there's no available rooms? But whatever, we didn't argue, nothing. We're like, okay, understandable, no problem. We'll come back after we sail away. We went to the sail away party, had fun for about maybe half hour to an hour. Then we went back to guest services like instructed. We waited in line, told them the problem, because of course we talked to someone different. And they said, oh, well, there was one cancellation, but that room was given to someone on standby. What? Why was a room that became available giving to someone on standby who wasn't even on the ship yet, instead of giving it to people who were already on the ship who needed a different room? Or why wasn't that room offered to us and our room given to the person on standby? The person on standby should have been told there's no rooms available, because the one that became available in the cancellation should have went to us, since we were already on board and had paid a year in advance in full. It should have been given to us and not someone who was waiting to see if they may possibly get on. So we were like, okay, well, now what do we do? And they said, well, you're going to have to wait until we get to Aruba and see if someone gets off. Okay, Aruba was 2 sail days away. So that's 3 days. They wanted us to stay in that room after we told them we can't stay in there because of the noise. But what choice did we have? They weren't budging. We tried to make the best of it. We went to bed. My husband didn't sleep all night. He kind of snoozed off and on because, eventually your body gives out from pure exhaustion. But he didn't get a consistent amount of sleep. So the next morning, we went back down to guest services, and we told them, we said, listen, we can't stay in this room. We can't go this long without sleep. And I even told them, I said, we will pay for an upgrade if we need to. If you have a balcony, if you have a suite, whatever you have, we'll pay the difference to get into an upgraded room. We're not trying to get a free upgrade. We're not trying to be picky. We cannot sleep. We will pay to get into a different room. But again, they said they had no available rooms, so there's nothing they could do. So we go back down to guest services. This is for a third time, I think it was. And we talked to yet another guy. I think this guy was new because he genuinely seemed like he wanted to help. He really investigated the map and was looking to see what it was, because it almost felt like and sounded like we were on top of some kind of engine or some kind of machinery or something like that. That's how loud and strong the rumbling and vibration was. But he couldn't find anything that we were on top of or below or anything. So he didn't know what the issue was, and he's like, well, let me come up to the room to experience what you're experiencing. So we get up there, and we get into the room. We close the door, and it wasn't 2 seconds before he said, oh no, you can't stay in here. This is way too loud. Thank you. That's what we've been saying for 2 days, but no one wanted to listen. No one cared. So he's like, wait up here. Let me see what I can do, and I'll call you guys in about 5 minutes. So we waited. It was more like 20 minutes. He knocked on the door and said, there's a room available just down the hall on the same floor. Okay, so I literally asked him, did somebody jump ship and swim for shore? Because yesterday we were told there were no rooms available at all. And he just kind of laughed that off. I mean, that was a serious question. I wanted to know why we were told there was no rooms available. And now he's bringing us to see a room on the same floor just down the hall. That question never got answered. So we went to the room and checked it out, and the noise was quieter there, but it was still there enough to be a disturbance, and the pressure was still there. So we were like, yeah, no. Would there be anything else? So he's like, well, let me see what I can do. Supposedly he wanted to put us in a suite, but he said there were none available. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. So he says, let me see what else I can do. I'll call you. So we go back to our room. We wait another 10 minutes, and he calls us and said there was a room available on the second floor. But when he went to check it out, there was a noise there that was even worse. I don't know if that's true because we didn't get a chance to see the room, but I was like, okay, that's 2 rooms now. We were told just yesterday no rooms were available, but now that's 2 rooms that might have been available, could have been offered yesterday, but even though it wouldn't have worked out, it was the fact that we were lied to that there were no rooms available. So that was number one issue I had, that we were being lied to. So anyway, he said he did all he could. There was nothing else available, and we would have to wait until we got to Aruba to see if anyone got off. And the fact that we were already lied to makes me question that. I don't know. At this point, I don't know who's lying and who's honest. So it is what it is. After a little while, I said to my husband, I'm like, so do you think that maybe leaving the TV on will help? Maybe it'll drown out the noise? He's like, it might. I said, okay, we'll try that. So that night, we went to bed. We left the TV on. And with the TV being left on, I couldn't sleep. Because, like I've said before, I'm a light sleeper. I wake up to a mouse fart. So, anytime, like if someone spoke loud or something like that, I mean, it was just HGTV, whatever was playing on HGTV all night. So, I'm not sure what it was, but I couldn't sleep. And my husband got another night of non interrupted sleep. So the next morning, which is our second sea day, we get a phone call in our room, and it was someone from guest services to tell us they may have a room that's become available on deck 10, and it may become available later that day or tomorrow. And we're like, well, we haven't gotten to Aruba yet. How is this becoming available? But they didn't answer, I guess. I don't know. My husband was talking to them. It wasn't me because they woke us up. So they told us they would let us know and to just give them a little while. But I told my husband, I said, I can't stay in this room and wait for them. We're going to go out and we're going to find something to do. So we went out. And at this point, we were trying to spend as much time outside the room as possible because the sound was just that annoying. And when you have certain sensory issues like I do, certain sounds just bother your ears. And those of you who do have sensory issues knows what I'm talking about. High-pitched noises or low boom, boom, noises. I imitated that very badly. But anyway, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So just that sound is irritating. So for as much time as we tried to stay out of the room, why we thought the casino was the best option, I don't know. But by this point, we ended up losing so much money in the casino. Like, I don't even want to tell you how much. Anyway, that's besides the point. So we went out and we found something to do, came back to a letter in our mailbox telling us that they've been trying to reach us and to come down to guest services. So we go down to guest services. They tell us that the room became available on deck 10. And we said, okay, so Why wasn't this room available? And she gave me the excuse that a handicapped room has to stay available to a person in need unless that person tells them they don't need it. That makes sense. And I probably would have bought it if our room was the size or shape to accommodate someone in, say, a wheelchair or one of those mobility scooters, or had some kind of other handicap feature. But the only feature the room had was a bar in the shower, which the room we were currently in had that as well. So the room was no different than the one we were already staying in. So it was not a handicapped room. And the only difference between that room and our room was the fact that it had an adjoining door to the cabin next to it. I hate that. But we went to the room and we checked it out, and it was quiet. So I didn't like being on the upper deck because I knew that when the boat would sway, we would really feel it. But the pro was that, that was a con, and the fact that it was an adjoining room was also a con. But the fact that it was quiet and it was very close to the food, like on the same floor. All we had to do was cross the pool to get to the buffet and stuff like that. So that was a pro. But at this point, we were so tired. We're like, we'll take it. So what was that? Oh, look at that. My watch is still on airplane mode. I have to take care of that. Anyway, she says, okay, go ahead and get your luggage packed and call guest services and let us know, and we'll get you moved. Great. We did just that. We went back to the room. Now, mind you, at this point, we're missing one of the shows. I was a little that we were missing it, but happy we were moving into a new room. We were actually going to get some sleep that night. So we went to the room. I didn't bother packing neatly. I just threw everything into the suitcase, not organized, not folded, no nothing, and closed the suitcases. We were packed in 10 minutes. So I called guest services as instructed and told them we were ready to move. And she's like, okay, well, go ahead and send housekeeping up to help you move your bags. But can one of you come down to guest services so we can switch out the key cards? No problem. I'll be right down. So I went down to guest services. My husband stayed in the room with the bags. And I did have to wait in line, which I'm not complaining. I'm just explaining. I did have to wait in line. So by the time I got through the line and to the counter and told them why I was there and got the key cards exchanged and everything, it took about 20-ish, 25 minutes. And again, I'm not complaining. I'm just giving you a timeline because at that point I said to myself, it's been about 20, 25 minutes. That should have been plenty of time for housekeeping to go to our cabin and get the bags and bring it to the new room to deck 10. So I'm like, I'll go ahead and just go to deck 10 because they should already be there. They were in fact not there. When I got to the room, nobody was in there. So I went back down to our room on deck 6. I had a knock because my key card no longer worked for that room, but my husband was still there with the bags, and he said housekeeping never showed up. So at this point, I'm just fed up. I am done missing out on activities. I am done waiting on, this whole situation to get fixed. So we're like, we're just going to move everything ourselves. We already got the key cards, whatever. So we made sure the room was empty, that we had everything, and we moved everything by ourselves. So we get to the new room, drop everything off, didn't even bother unpacking because at this point, the next show time of the show we missed was happening, and I was not going to miss the show. I wanted to see this show. So we went ahead and went to the show. The show was great. I absolutely loved it. It was awesome. It was America Rocks, where they danced and did performances and stuff like that too, classic rock. My favorite genre of music, my husband's favorite genre of music. So that worked out well, and we were able to watch it. That night, we finally slept. So the next day, I decided, well, the first 3 days of our vacation was completely ruined by this whole situation. Wait, hold up, rewind, stop, because I forgot a part during these 3 days. Let's just put like a little bookmark right here where we started the next morning after a good night's sleep. We're going to go back to the first sea day, where when we told the guy who was really trying to help us, while he was investigating the rooms, my husband was investigating our room. Now, my husband is a commercial plumber. He installs all the plumbing in schools and hospitals and things like that. And he's medically gas certified. You know, when you go to a hospital and you have the wall where like the oxygen and stuff like that is, he installs all that. And he also has done some AC repair work. He's not a professional in that. He's just kind of learned how the whole AC units and ducts and all that stuff works. And he works with the duct guys, you know, the guys who install the ducts and AC units in the hospitals and schools, while him and his team are installing the plumbing. So he has an idea on how an AC unit works. And while we were waiting in the room, he was kind of feeling the walls, putting his ear on the walls and stuff like that. And the part in the room that has the vent that pulls the air into the system before it blows out, that wall, he said that's where the rumbling was coming from. So he was trying to explain it to me, but I wasn't following him. Something with the unit when it pulls the air in, if something's not working right, a pressure valve or something doesn't open up properly and it creates pressure, and that's what the rumbling was or whatever, because something wasn't working right or something or another. I don't know. I work in a courthouse, so I don't know what he was talking about, but I'll take his word for it, because when it comes to stuff like that, he knows what he's talking about. So he tried to explain that to guest services, and they said, okay, we'll send someone from maintenance up to check it out. Nobody from maintenance came. And remember, that was the day they tried to move us but couldn't move us. So we were still in that room for a whole day and evening, and maintenance never came. So that was another inconsistency with guest services, maintenance, whoever it was. I don't know if guest services actually told maintenance to come and they didn't come, or if guest services forgot to tell maintenance to come. I don't know where the ball dropped in that area. All I know is that we were told maintenance would come, maintenance didn't come. Now, fast forward, remove the bookmark. So the morning that we left off, I went down to guest services and I said, okay, now that that situation is resolved, I want to know how we're going to be compensated, because that was 3 days of inconvenience and no sleep and inconsistency and just all out aggravation. They were like, well, we need to talk to our supervisor and we'll get back to you. So I'm like, okay, that sounds fair, understandable, because I can't make those kinds of decisions without my supervisor. So I'm like, okay, just let us know. So the next morning, we get a phone call to our cabin, and they said that they want to offer us a complimentary meal at one of their specialty restaurants for the inconvenience. I couldn't really grasp my head around that, because that's less than $100. And while it sounds good, it really isn't, because I've paid to eat at those specialty restaurants 3 times. Twice at the steakhouse and once at the Italian food. And I tell you, the quality of the food is no better than what you get in the dining room. I can get steak in the dining room anytime I want. The Italian food, I live with an Italian. We eat Italian food all the time. Pizza is one of his favorite things. Of course, the Italian restaurant didn't serve pizza, but anyway. So that's exactly what I told him. I said, to be perfectly honest, the quality of the food in your specialty restaurants are no better than the quality in the dining room. If I can get that same quality in the dining room, which is already included, I'm not going to spend the extra money at a specialty restaurant for the same quality. You see where I'm going with this? Which is why, after doing it 3 times, I don't do it anymore. It's a waste of money, because the food is just as good in the dining room. When I say dining room, I'm not talking about the buffet on the Lido deck. I'm talking about the formal dining room. So I told them, no, thanks, but no thanks. That wasn't good enough for 3 days of inconvenience and everything that happened. So she says, well, how about a professional photo? What? Those things are like $28. And honestly, because of everything that was going on, I wasn't in the mood to enjoy anything. Like, The whole 3 days, I was in a pissed off mood. I was aggravated. I tried to make the best of it, but did not enjoy it at all. I had no fun, no nothing. So again, I said, thanks, but no thanks. You're going to have to do better than that. So it was later that afternoon, after we got back on the ship from Curacao, that we got a phone call to our room. They talked to my husband this time and said, we want to offer you a complimentary meal. My husband was like, well, they just talked to my wife yesterday and offered her the same thing, and she said no. And then I could only hear his end of the conversation, and then he goes, no, we don't eat sushi. Ugh. Those of you who eat sushi, more power to you, but no, 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 no. So we're like, yeah, no. And then I guess they offered him a photo and he said no. And then they offered him a voucher to the candy store. I'm assuming because I hear him like, the candy store? Really? Come on. What are you going to give us? $100 worth of candy? Ridiculous. So he said no. And later that evening, we went back down to guest services to talk to a supervisor because we weren't happy with their compensation offers. So we talked to someone down there. I don't know who it was, but they said anything more, they have to go through corporate. They have to email corporate, and it would take a couple of days to hear back from them. So to come back in 2 days and see what they say. We're like, okay, we're on the cruise another 4 days, so we can do that. So we had 2 sea days ahead of us. The next morning, we get a phone call from guest services. They said, yeah, we heard from corporate and they're only approving onboard credit. And we were like, wait a minute. We were told that it would take 2 days for you to hear back from corporate. It hasn't even been 24 hours yet and you already heard back from them? And they're like, yeah, they're only approving onboard credit, so we can only give you a free dinner or a photo or some kind of onboard credit. And we're like, no, that is not good enough. For 3 days of inconvenience, our 8-day cruise turned into a 5-day cruise. And frankly, with all the aggravation that's been going on with having to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with guest services, my whole freaking trip has been ruined so far. I've been nothing but aggravated. Every time I start enjoying myself, they would call us with another lame offer, annoy me. And I was just like, oh my God, this has got to stop. So I told them again, thanks, but no thanks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and contact corporate myself when I get home and see where this goes. So I said to them, I said, let's be honest. If you paid for an 8-day cruise and you were inconvenienced that much for 3 days and then aggravated the remaining of the trip, you also would be declining these lame offers. None of these would be good enough for you guys. So we hung up and that was that. The next morning, which was our second sea day, we went down to guest services like we were instructed. And because I wanted to see what they were going to tell me next. I'm no lawyer, but I've spent enough time in courtrooms and during hearings and listening to testimony to pick up on these things, to be able to tell when the stories aren't lining up and the inconsistency with certain things. I just knew there were lies being told and half-truths. So we went back down to guest services and played dumb, played completely oblivious to the conversation we had the previous morning. And so we went there and we said, yeah, we were told that to come back and that you guys were going to email corporate and to come back in 2 days. And it's been 2 days, so we wanted to know if there was an update. So she looks in the computer and she says, corporate hasn't responded yet. Really? Because we were told yesterday in a phone call they did contact you guys back. And she's like, no, they haven't replied. Okay. So again, we're being lied to. Put that in the back of my mind, and I'll include that in my email to corporate and in my video. So this poor girl seemed like she didn't know what was going on. So I didn't excuse you, mister, again. So I didn't really say anything too much to her. I just kind of let it go and was like, okay, well, just if you could just let us know when you do hear back from them. So the next morning, we get a phone call and said that they heard back from corporate and they were going to offer us $100 onboard credit to split between the two of us. So that would be $50 each. So they're still offering us the same, just in a different way. And I said, no, dude. I said, no, I'm going to decline that. And I've had about enough of this. I'm tired of your games. I'm going to contact corporate myself when I get home. And I'm also going to take this to social media. I told him I did a little bit. I said I have 1,500 followers, which technically I only have 1,150, I think, on TikTok. So I'll be bringing this to TikTok and putting it on social media, blasting it, telling all my followers to blast Carnival and, make this go viral, because I want them to know they're already on everyone's list with modifying the VIP thing. And now their guest services on the Carnival Vista is treating their customers like this. I don't believe it's corporate doing it. I think it's Carnival Vista. The guest services team on Carnival Vista is what's doing it, and corporate has no inclination on what's going on. That's what I believe. And I told her that. I said, I don't believe for a minute that you guys actually emailed corporate. I believe you're just giving me the same bullshit story and the inconsistent half-truths and lies, and that you never intended to contact corporate. So I'm going to decline your offer. I'm going to go ahead and contact corporate myself when I get home, bring this to social media, and we are done with this conversation. And we hung up. She calls me right back. I answer the phone. It sounded like the same person, but she gave me the same offer as if we didn't just speak 2 minutes before. And I'm like, someone just called and said the same exact thing. Oh, they did? I said, yes, they did. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I just told them. And I repeated what my plan is. So we hung up. They called me again. This time I ignored it. I was done playing their game. I was done with everything. I was just freaking done. I didn't want to deal with them anymore. I was going to ignore all the calls. No more phone calls. No more going to guest services about it. No more nothing. I will handle it with corporate myself when I get home. So we went out. We had, tried to have some fun. Went to a show, I think it was, or we went to the pool. We did something. I don't know what it was, but we went out. We come back to the cabin later on. There's a letter in our mailbox from guest services asking us to come down to guest services or call them. We ignored that. We just continued with our cruise as if everything was fine. Enjoyed ourselves as much as we could. And then the day before the last day was No. It was the day before we got to Celebration Key. So it was the following day, our second sea day. After all that happened, that was just the one day, the one sea day. Technically, this was a fourth sea day because remember, we had 2 sea days going to Aruba and then 2 sea days coming back from Curacao, because Aruba and Curacao was only a few hours apart. And then we went to Celebration Key and then came home. So it was our second sea day on our way back. So technically our fourth sea day. We went down to guest services to take care of the bill, because when I had done the online check-in, my husband was sleeping, so I put my credit card on the room. And our intention was to pay it in cash at the end of the cruise, but we ended up losing all our cash that my husband had on him in the casino. And it was more than enough to cover the bill. It hurts to even talk about it, but and that bill was pretty high. It maxed out my credit card. Let's just say that. But anyway, so our intention was when we go to guest services, because we didn't have any cash, lost it all in the casino. That's another thing. And a lot of people, hold up, pause for a minute on this. A lot of people, because I belong to a Facebook group of guests that were on this specific cruise on these exact sail days. We created a Facebook group. So a lot of people were complaining that on this particular cruise, the casino was not paying out. A lot of people lost a lot of money on this cruise. So that's another thing to think about. It wasn't just us that lost it. Obviously, these games are fixed. We know this. But at some point, they have to pay out. And a lot of people were bitching that they weren't paying out at all. Like seriously, not at all. So a couple people won big, but they were also betting a lot of money. I'm assuming that they didn't profit their winnings. They were just winning some of their money back that they had bet with. That's my assumption. So anyway, back to this. So we go down to guest services to take care of the bill. And since we didn't have cash, my husband told them he gave him the debit card, and he said to put all the charges on the debit card because there's more than enough money in our bank account to cover it, versus the charges that were going to go on my credit card would have maxed out the card with an additional $56 left over that had to be paid, an outstanding balance of $56. So my husband said he wants the entire bill, everything that we. Okay, let's start again. I had to take a call from my husband. Okay, so I stopped at the part where I was complaining about the casino not paying out except to those who put a lot of money in and didn't profit anything. They didn't win anything. They were just basically getting some of their money back. That was my assumption. So we went back to guest services. We were telling them about the bill. And what he did was he put the card on the account. And then a few minutes later, after we left, we thought it was all squared away. I looked at my sale and sign account and realized what he did was add my husband's debit card. So what it would do was it would charge as much as it can to my credit card. And then my credit card would be maxed out. So the remaining amount of $56 would be charged to my husband's account. And that's not what we wanted. So we had to go back to guest services a second time and explain to him, we want the entire bill, everything that we charged onto our sale and sign account to be taken out of the bank account, not put on my credit card. So he said that what he would do was he would go ahead and put a limit on my credit card, a $10 limit, so that when everything processed through, it would force it to automatically take it out of our bank account. So we're like, okay, that's fine. We were like, whatever you need to do it, because we wanted to go play bingo. I'm 45, he's 60, don't judge. So when that was said and done, or so we thought, we get in line. The card sales had already started, so we were in the back of the line. We waited about 15 minutes in line. We get to the front of the line. We go to get our cards, and it said that the transaction wouldn't go through. It was declined. We're like, how can that be? There's plenty of money in the account. So he said, well, you're going to have to go to guest services to take care of it. At this point, I spent more time with guest services than I have actually enjoying my cruise. So we go back to guest services a third time and explained the situation to them. We just made it to bingo. We didn't have any more clipboards. We didn't have a tape. We couldn't find a table, chairs with a table available, whatever. But we made it work. We just turned the chairs around and used them as a table, and it was fine. Didn't win anything. We played all 3 bingo days on the whole cruise. Didn't win anything there either. So we didn't win in the casino. We didn't win at bingo. Nothing. Before we played bingo, while we were at customer service for a third time, after we got the whole thing with the bank figured out and fixed, he then says, we've been trying to reach you because we want to give you $100 each onboard credit. So first it was $100 for us to share. And when I said no, and I was going to contact corporate myself, because I don't think they actually did, and take this to social media, now it's $100 a piece. At this point, I was done. I said, no, I already said I don't want anything from you guys, that I'm going to take this to corporate myself. And then I said, actually, can you look in there and see how much we paid for the trip? Not what we purchased on our sale and sign account since we've been on the boat, what we actually initially paid for the trip. So he looks in his computer And he goes, yes, you paid this much. I can't remember what it was. So I said, okay. I take out my phone, open up my calculator, and I put that amount in, divided that by 8, and multiplied it by 3. Showed him and I said, this is what I want a refund for. Not an onboard credit. I want it as a refund, to refund me for the 3 days that I didn't get to enjoy my cruise. We paid for an 8-day cruise and we only got a 5-day cruise. And typically I didn't even enjoy my 5 days because I was so stressed and aggravated by guest services incompetence and everything that I just couldn't wait to get home. For the first time in my cruising life, I could not wait to get off this boat and home, which says something because I don't like being home. I like traveling. So he says, ma'am, I'm not able to authorize that. I said, I know, but that's what I'm wanting. So if you can't authorize it, then stop bothering me with compensation offers, because I'm going to take this to corporate myself when I get home. And I'm also, again, as I've said before, I told your colleagues, I'm going to take this to social media. So we got home yesterday, and what happened next was just the cherry on top of a fantastic trip. We had decided that for the first time we weren't going to check our luggage to get off. We were going to carry all our luggage off so we can do express checkout, because we just couldn't wait to get off and get home. So we leave the room. Neither of us are in the mood for breakfast. And we go ahead and sit in the waiting area. So our checkout time was between 8:15 and 8:30 to actually get off the ship, but it was just before 8 o'clock, and the announcement came on that everyone who has their bags can go ahead and get off. So we went ahead and did that. For the first time ever, we didn't have to wait in line. As I said in a previous video, we don't have passports yet. We are planning on getting them for the next cruise, which is Disney. I don't have anything for Carnival booked yet. I want to enunciate yet, Carnival, if you're watching, and I'm going to get to that. But we do have a Disney cruise booked for next year. So we're planning on getting our passports for next year. But right now we don't have them. We use our birth certificate, driver's licenses. And usually every year before this year, we had to wait in a really long line to go through customs and leave the line to go get our luggage. But this time we didn't have to wait in line. We just went down the ramps and right through customs and we're out. Wow, I can't talk. It wasn't even 5 minutes before we were outside, which again, I should have realized. I should have known. Every time things go good and go smoothly, something's going to get messed up. I should learn by now, but I'm always on the positive side of things. So we get outside, we go across the street, and our car is right there. Because remember, we were able to park on the first level right there. So as we're walking to the car, my husband goes, oh no, you have a flat tire. What? The car has been sitting for a week and I have a flat tire? So apparently I picked up some kind of bolt or screw or something, but thankfully we had a donut in the trunk, so he was able to change the tire, not the tire, but put a donut on to at least get us home. And you know, it's the next morning. I went ahead and got the tire fixed, so that's good. And I did send Carnival a lengthy email, which if anyone from Carnival is watching, this has tipped the scales in favor of other cruise lines, because like I said before, y'all are already on people's lists, including mine, with modifying your VIP. And I was only considering researching other cruise lines because I've been with Carnival for so long and I like the friendly atmosphere. Now, I will say the entire trip wasn't completely ruined. We did meet some new friends from Georgia. The daughter, who is, she's older, she's an adult. She and I hit it off and we have a lot in common. Hey, Abby, if you're watching this, shout out to you. And we did enjoy the shows. One of the stars of the show did remember me because I went to almost every show and I was able to talk to her. And during the rock show, she actually gave me a temporary tattoo and we chatted a bit. So she remembered my face and smiled at me quite a few times during the different shows. And during the last show, they came out to the audience to dance, and she danced with me for a few minutes. So that was nice. Our cruise director, Mike, was fabulous. I've always been pleased with the cruise directors, most of them. None of them really left a lasting impact on me, but Mike was fabulous. He really interacted with the crowd. Some people said that he wasn't that good, but they said that he wasn't really interacting with the crowd or doing very many activities. These people must have been under a rock, because all the activities I did, he was there. He was there for the America Rock show. He was there for the 80s party out on the deck. He was there for the Love and Marriage show. Everything I did, he was there. So I got pictures with him. I mean, I thought he was a fabulous cruise director. I think, in fact, out of the 7 cruises I've been with Carnival, I think he was the best cruise director I ever had. So the people who saying he wasn't that good, it was actually one person who said a lot of people said he wasn't good. I think is a little BS. I think he's just saying that. But anyone who's saying that either wasn't doing the activities that he was involved with, because he is only one person, or they're lying, because he was the best cruise director I ever had. So there were some highlights of the trip, but it was a struggle the whole week, especially those first 3 days. So like I said, I sent a lengthy email to Carnival Corporate last night. I'm waiting to hear back from them. It hasn't even been 24 hours, so I don't expect an immediate response from them. I do expect to wait, a few days to hear back from them, because I'm sure they want to investigate this, and I'm sure they got other emails from other customers and everything. So I'm sure they'll get to mine. I'm sure they're going to investigate, find out what it was that happened and everything, and then get back to me once all that is said and done. But I do want to say this to anyone from Carnival who's watching. They're already on my list for modifying the VIP program, and I know a lot of others feel the same way. From my research online and watching TikTok and YouTube and things like this, a lot of people have a problem with you modifying your loyalty program. So before this trip, I was only considering going with other cruise lines. I was planning on doing the research to see what other cruise lines offer, if the price versus what's included is comparable with Carnival. I was looking into see what else is out there, because I've only ever sailed Carnival. I am going to be experiencing Disney Cruise Lines next year. And I'm not saying that it's not worth it, Disney, or anyone who loves Disney, because I myself is a Disney adult. I love everything about Disney. I understand it takes a lot of money to give the experiences you give to your guests. So I understand that. And I'm not saying that the price for a Disney cruise line is not worth it. I'm sure it is worth it. We don't make the amount of money that will allow us to afford Disney cruise line prices every year, as we've been able to do Carnival. So I have a feeling this might be a one and done with Disney Cruise, not because I want it that way. I don't want it that way. I would much prefer to keep sailing with Disney. Realistically, I just don't think we're going to be able to afford to. When this one is done, we're going to see what it's like. And I've heard nothing but good thing about Disney Cruise Lines, so I'm anticipating a fabulous trip. We may decide, hey, that was phenomenal. We're going to make Disney Cruise Line a priority no matter what we have to do. We may do that. I don't know yet. We have to wait and see what it's all about, and wait and see what our finances look like at that point in our life to then decide if we're going to continue with Disney Cruise Lines. However, while all that is going on over here, I'm going to be researching other cruise lines over here to compare them with Carnival. Just in case Disney doesn't work out, I'm going to have a backup plan with other cruise lines. We're going to research what other cruise lines are offering. I heard through the grapevine that Royal Caribbean matches your loyalty status with Carnival. However, when I got home, I researched it, and it's not Royal Caribbean that does that, but MSC Cruises does it. So I do want to go on a Royal Caribbean cruise. I want to try them out, but also MSC is the cruise line that matches your Carnival loyalty status. So I guess because of me being a gold status right now with Carnival, I can transfer it and become silver with MSC, which is the same tier as gold for Carnival. They're just named differently. So I'm going to start looking into MSC cruises. Right now, I'm just in the research process, Carnival. I'm getting way off track. I'm comparing cruise lines with yours to see what they can offer me that you can regarding pricing and everything like that, because I know the pricing is going to be different once I lose my gold status with you. So I got to do a lot of research. That's one thing with me. I research. I have a backup plan for my backup plan. That's how I am. But Carnival, the scale right now was even because I was only getting ready to research and considering another cruise line. Now the scale is like this. I'm going to put the blame on guest services on the Carnival Vista and not on Carnival themselves. So once I hear back from Carnival, depending on what you decide to do, that may even out the scales again to where I'm only researching and considering going with another cruise line. However, if I don't hear anything from you and or you deny my request, that's going to make the scale and I will never sail with Carnival again. So this is your chance to make this right, Carnival, because I've never experienced such bad service on a cruise ship. I have never cried myself to sleep wishing I was home because I was so miserable on one of your cruise ships. I've always enjoyed cruising. I have gotten people to cruise with you just by talking about how much fun cruising is and the experiences and everything. But this trip was miserable. And I'm not asking for a full refund. I'm only asking for a partial refund. 3 days worth of what I paid is what I'm asking for. Either as a refund, I will also consider it as a discount on a future cruise, because I do plan on doing a 3 to 4 day cruise later this year that we can take my son on, maybe other members of my family. But all that determines on what you decide to do. So hoping people that see this will go ahead and click like, and please comment, get this video some attention. Please subscribe to my channel. If or when Carnival responds, I will make an updated video. Whether it goes good for Carnival or not, that depends on them. But I will make a follow-up video on the outcome of what happened once I hear back from them, and we will go from there. But right now, they're not in my favor. And everyone I've told this story to agrees with me that they fell short of positive customer experiences and taking care of their loyalty customers. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the vlog here. Thank you for watching. Like I said, hopefully you can give me a like and follow. So please remember to spread kindness, not hate, and I'll see you all in the next video.